Well, it's about time the Fourth and Frames crew wrapped up their pod. They always go over, and you know what? You know whose fault it is, JT? It's Nate Markham's. This guy just talks. It is unreal, but we appreciate him. We hope everybody had a good time watching the past 2 hours here on the Fantasy and Frames Wednesday channel, where we've had Dynasty 365 with Bob Harris. We had Nate Markham, Drew Scott, and Rhett Manuel talking NFC North on offense. And this guy read the calendar wrong, and therefore we are going to be talking about the NFC West today. We got Mace Riney from RPO Football. We're super excited to get things going. So before we do that, let's hit the music. Before we get to our guests today, JT, I just want to say I'm very sad that we're not going to see you next week in Canton for the Fantasy Football Expo.
I was pumped to come. I have said this before. My son usually plays flag football, and it doesn't start till September. And then he came up to me like a month ago and was like, Dad, I think I'm ready to play tackle this year. I'm like, are you sure? Because we had talked about not playing until the next year. He's like, no, I want to play tackle. Fifth grade here is the first year you can play tackle. He's like, no, I think I'm ready. I want to play tackle. I'm like, okay, cool. I go to sign up, and I realize, like, oh, this is the last day of signups, like that next day. And I sign up, and then I'm like, oh, practice starts in 2 weeks. And his very first game is the day of Saturday before that weekend of the expo. So, and I'm the assistant head coach and defensive coordinator. So I'm like, there is no way I can miss the first game. So I am not going to get to see you guys. I am super disappointed. I'm pumped for the game. I'm pumped for my son and the kids on the team. But yes, a little disappointed I'm not going to be able to make the expo this year.
Well, you know who is going to make the expo besides myself is our guest here, Mace Riney. Mace, first of all, welcome back to Shoot the Gap. It has been a while. I don't think I was here the first time you were joining us here on the podcast. I think I was like sick that day, but very glad to finally share the screen with you to talk about one of your favorite divisions, the NFC West. Welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Dude, I'm doing really, really good. Thank you for having me. Love Fantasy and Frames. Friends, both of you guys. And the NFC West is definitely my jam. Go San Francisco 49ers. And forget everyone else. Good night, everyone. No kidding. I'm
take the whole defense, right? Just take the whole Niners defense. You'll be
right there. I'll just go over every single guy, and then we'll just kind of for real. Thank you guys for having me on your baby. Sorry you won't be there, JT Orange, but bring home that dub, bro.
I appreciate it, man.
So you can find Mace's work over at RPO Football. We love everything y'all are doing over there with Leo, aka Master IDP. Just a great brand full of great people putting out great IDP content. And that's what we want in the fantasy football space. All us IDP degenerates. We just like talking defense, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun competing against you for the first time this year, Mace, because we are both in what I like to think is the most difficult divisions of the Kings Classic tournament. Yes, Bob Lung, I said it. Print the shirts. The most difficult division because we are in the Dick Butkus division. Ran by Gary Davenport, a.k.a. the godfather of IDP. And not only do we have to deal with offensive players, we get to deal with defensive players too. You know, so as the guy said on Saturday Night Live, suck it, Trebek. You know, we are in the most difficult division. And I kind of want, Mace, if you mind taking a few minutes just talking about like your path to being in the Butkus division this coming year, because last year I wasn't at the expo. I fell down some stairs like an idiot, and I couldn't make the expo weekend or the Kings Classic. But I heard you were very instrumental in just like being like 100% like supportive of everybody. And then you flash forward a year, here we are. You're in the tournament. Like, tell me all your thought processes that started from last year till now.
Yeah. So last year I reached out to Gary Davenport. I was like, hey man, if you need someone else, like I'm going there, because he had talked to me about it before, but it didn't really end up working out. I ended up being an alternate. And they said that either he would need help setting up IDP or that Bob would need help setting up something else. So I just showed up, and I ended up being a weirdo and staying there the entire time and like drafting for people while they're going to the bathroom, back and forth, just kind of helping out, going around, I mean, dude, you get some of the best heads in not just IDP, but fantasy football from different networks, different, I guess, I don't want to say generations and put some of the people that far above me, but like you get people from different walks, past of life. And I like to see the strategy. I like to see what people put into it. I just want to hang out with my friends. So to now be not just there watching or helping, to now actually be a part of it, it's such an honor. And it's a place that I honestly never thought that I would get to when I started this post-COVID, just being a guy that just wanted to talk about football, because I used to hate IDP. I didn't understand it. I put my mentality to it, made a couple horrible trades, took my L's, and kind of this is where I'm at. So it's just a testament to like what I've done, but not just me, but the platform of like what you have done, or like the guys like Gary Davenport who have been here far before I even considered playing fantasy football, that have paved the path for me. So to be able to do it with my friends, with my, I don't know, dare I say family, I guess, it's
No, yeah. I mean, we are one big, IDP fantasy football family. It has taken a long time for us to get to where we are today, but it is great because you have great quality people helping to build up IDP into the mainstream, and it's just great having you join us in the tournament this year. And also for those who are unaware, originally at the Fantasy Football Expo, which will be not this weekend but the weekend after, we were supposed to be, meaning when I say we, I mean the members of the IDP panel. We're supposed to be on at the very end of the day at 3 p.m. when everybody was super tired and probably would not show up to the panel because they're exhausted. And then enter the gracious Bob Long. Shout out to Nate Cheatham over at IDP, guys. Words were said, dollars were exchanged, beers were drunk. And next thing you know, we got moved from the 3 p.m. time slot on the small stage to the 12 p.m. time slot on the main stage. So now, we can't hide. We're right there in front of every single person attending the Fantasy Football Expo, talking to you about IDP Fantasy Football. We could not be more excited and privileged to just share why we're passionate about this, why we think you should be passionate about it, and why you should at least give it a shot. And we say it all the time, wherever, whether it's us or people everywhere else. You may try it, you may not like it, and you know what? That's true for everything. But you may try it and you be like, why haven't I done this, at all previously? Yeah. And that's the thing that people should be paying attention to. So to have the panel at 12, it's going to be something special, folks. So just for those attending the Fantasy Football Expo, please make sure to stop by the main stage and check out the IDP panel there, where Mace will also be a member there, as well as myself, Nate Markham, Mike Wohlert, Dynasty Santa. I'm trying to make sure I don't leave anybody. Leo, Master IDP. And then you cap everything off with Gary Davenport, the godfather of IDP. And what he's saying will be his spiffiest outfit ever, which this guy wears eagle tip shoes and
he's got swag, dude.
You can't miss him. That is for sure. You don't even have to know who Gary is. You just look around and you're like, who?
He's important.
Oh, that guy with that. Oh, that's got to be him. Yeah. He's always all the way dressed up. It's awesome.
All that's missing is the mink fur coat, but again, it's August, so probably a little bit too hot for that. But, he is first of all, he's a great human being. He likes to tell everybody, I'm just Gary, and I like to follow that with the godfather of IDP. Yeah. So he's going to be emceeing the event, which is super humble on his part. So again, we're going to have a great time at the Fantasy Football Expo, at the Kings Classic, and just Expo weekend as a whole. So if you like IDP Fantasy Football, whether it's me or Mace or anybody else that you recognize, come up to us, talk shop. We'd love to talk to you about this awesome aspect of this game that we love so much. Let's go to the YouTube chat now. Got Craig. Man, Craig is the man. 3D Mason and the boys. Another other guy's reference. So, Craig, funny story. I was asking my bosses at work about have they ever seen the other guys, and one of them did. And then I'm like, and he was like, yeah, it's funny. But then it was like more of like a, yeah, it's funny, ha 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 ha. And I'm like, why are you trailing off? You should be like even more enthusiastic because it is hilarious. He's like, yeah, but I own a red Prius, and so for those who know what happened in the movie with the red Prius, just watch the movie, you'll understand.
Oh boy.
The second I said that, I'm like, man, if you were not my boss, I would be ragging you on jokes every single day because that is gold. I love it. But anywho, Craig is fantastic. Great work he does for IDP Fantasy Football as well. Just a great guy to talk to in general, just interact with on Twitter. So Roto Heat Craig with a K. Just love you, man. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight. And hopefully we'll get to see you next week. I bet he listens to Little River Band too. The references just never stop. I love it.
Try to get Jorge fired over here.
Yeah.
He can't help himself.
I will ask him when he gets back. He's going on vacation. I'll ask him if he does listen to the Little River Band out of curiosity. Anywho, okay. So, folks, we're here to talk about the NFC West. A lot of questions, a lot of maybe things that are certain, uncertain. And I figure let's just get into the mystery situation, the mystery of teams here in the NFC West. And let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. A lot of change here from offensive side of the ball to the defensive side of the ball, to the head coach, Pete Carroll, did his time. He's out. You got Mike McDonald coming over from the Baltimore Ravens, their former defensive coordinator, bringing his base 3-4 scheme to Seattle that he ran in Baltimore. Although he, 79% of the time last year, he was using dime personnel. So, as is mostly everybody in the NFL. So what does that mean? You have, your 5 defensive backs, and then you have your 2 linebackers, and then your defensive lineman. And, we talk about we can get to the linebacker position in a second because that's also a mystery. But I want to get to the defensive backs first, guys. And I want to bring up something that I found here per Sports Info Solutions. That last year in Baltimore, Mike McDonald involved his nickel cornerback as his 7th run defender before using a traditional box safety. And I found that to be very interesting. And I started to look back. I'm like, well, who was their, nickel cornerback? Who played the most nickel cornerback spots or slot quarterback spots for the Baltimore Ravens? Oh, it was Kyle Hamilton. He actually had more snaps at slot than any of the actual cornerbacks for the team. So he got double duty as a box safety as well as being the slot cornerback. So he was assisting in run support, left and right. Now I go to the Seattle Seahawks and I look at who had the most slot snaps last year, as well as box snaps, and it's Devin Witherspoon. And we've talked
ILL,
about him.
baby. ILL, Illini, Devin Witherspoon. My guy. I love him. He is going to be awesome this year. I love him. He is my number 1 corner, my number 1 rated corner this year. I think he is going to crush in this scheme.
I mean, he finished Fantasy Pros as the DB 15, averaging 12.3 points per game, 56 solo tackles at 23, 16 pass deflections. He's approaching for me Kenny Moore territory, where I know when we just rank defensive backs, or we kind of fade the cornerback portion of the defensive back categories, with the exception of very few elite ones. And I feel like Witherspoon is teetering on the edge of being super elite for fantasy, even in just defensive back only leagues. For cornerback only leagues, he's probably one of my top 3 cornerbacks. Mace, let me ask you first here. Any concerns here with the addition of Julian Love in that contract, the addition of Rayshon Jenkins? Does this muddy the defensive back situation here for you, or are you drinking the Kool-Aid on going atypical here and going cornerback for the Seattle Seahawks in terms of fantasy relevance this year?
Yeah, that was actually my counterpoint would be Rayshawn Jenkins, just because we've seen Jordan Love. He can do, I'm sorry, not Jordan Love. He just got signed. Julian Love. Julian Love can do both. He can play back. He can play in the box. He's kind of that utility guy. I don't think he's like amazingly outstanding at any one thing, but he's very versatile and he can do a bunch of things. He can adapt. If you have the variance like on your defense to put Witherspoon out there by himself one-on-one against the slot guy, and then you have Jenkins come down in the box, that maybe they can switch, maybe they can, do whatever fits the most mold of that defense. The biggest thing is just seeing what sticks with McDonald at this stage. Like the earlier weeks, I think are going to be a telltale sign of obviously what's to come, what he likes, what he doesn't like. They also signed Kayvon Wallace too. I think it's just like a 1 or 2 year deal. He's kind of been passed around more than a beach ball at a Nickelback concert, but like maybe if something happens with Jenkins or something, he can step in. I like the depth call, but no, I think in true position leagues, I think that Witherspoon is a must grab, especially kind of in those later rounds. If people are forgetting about that position, you come up on him. I mean, maybe the tunnel's not as bright as last year, right? Maybe he doesn't get a top 20, top 30 finish, but still top 30, top 40 at that position is going to be nuts. They do have strength in numbers there, but their linebacker situation is a little bit cloudy. So maybe some of those box guys are actually going to be asked to come in. I mean, we saw they had Jamal Adams, right, for a number of years, safety / linebacker. So maybe they still try to, I mean, obviously different coaching, different mindset, but maybe they do try to keep dropping that guy in the box and create more like disguised coverages based on that. With that said, you might get a more sporadic, you might get Love that gets 19, and you might get Jenkins that's a shutdown guy, gets 30 points one game. It's just going to be hopping and popping. So maybe I'm gearing more towards like best ball on these guys. But if I had to take a definitive dive as far as like a short league, I don't know if I would go corner. But if you're going to, this guy's one of the more sure ones that you're going to get, I feel.
JT, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, for me, like I told you, I love Witherspoon. I watched him at Illinois. He was just a dog. Comes up, wants to make tackles. He's not your typical cornerback that like shies away from contact. He wants to come up and make plays. He wants to jam you coming off the line. He wants to be physical. I could really see them possibly rolling these safeties because you got Jenkins and Love, both who can play in the box, both who can play a little bit deep. Witherspoon, he was kind of more of an outside shutdown corner at Illinois, but then they kind of slid him in, and he missed a couple games early, and he got off to a little bit of a slow start because he was injured in training camp, and then he just came on the scene last year. In a true position league, if you're in an MFL league where you have to start a cornerback, to me, if you're in Dynasty, he's my number one corner I want. I want him for sure. I had a couple of people ask me, would you take him in just a start DB league? And I said, I usually don't take cornerbacks to start DB leagues. He's one of the guys I would take because I think he's going to be in the mix enough. And he, to me, is the safest guy on this defense. I think his position, what he plays, is going to be set. I'm a little worried what all these other guys are going to do. Just kind of like Mace said, it could be a big week-to-week thing. Could Jenkins have a pop-off one week, then it's Love the next week, and then somebody else? I definitely think there's a chance there. And then the linebacker play, Baker, Dotson, both new guys signed from Miami and Buffalo. Who's going to be the green dot? Who's going to be the guy that stays in there a little more? Is one of those guys going to be on the field? And then they only play one linebacker most of the time, and they bring down those safeties, and they keep Witherspoon in the nickel slot. So to me, he's the safest guy to take on this defense. So he's the guy I want for sure in the linebacker or secondary crew. The rest of these guys have shown that they can produce fantasy-wise. It's almost like you're going to have to wait and see. Either I would draft them late, or if I'm in a league like a best ball where some of these guys maybe are sitting on the waivers because people just aren't sure, keep an eye out early on and kind of see, who hits, who doesn't. Maybe you drop one guy and pick up someone else. But I'm all in on Devin Witherspoon. I think he's just going to be better and better here. People forget this guy didn't play football until I think it was his junior or senior year of high school. He was a 0-star recruit. 0-star. He went to a junior college, fought his way on to Illinois as kind of like a backup piece, and just won his way into the starting lineup. And the coaches absolutely raved about him there. And the guy ends up being a top 5 draft pick in the NFL. I mean, if you want to talk about, those success stories, he's that guy, and he never forgets about it. it's sitting there on his shoulder every day. I was a 0-star. Nobody wanted me. No one recruited me out of high school. He is just a dog. I love him. Like I said, even in just a DB league, I'm taking him. I'm taking him a lot higher in a cornerback league because I think he's going to give you consistent production out of that nickel slot corner.
So let's talk about consistent production here at the linebacking situation. When I say consistent production, I mean contributors to your fantasy roster from week in and week out. Are either of these guys in shallow leagues draftable? Like I would imagine if you have deep benches, you could potentially roll in a Dotson because he did have that track history in terms of tackle efficiency in Buffalo last year. Jerome Baker, I don't even know where to start with Jerome Baker. I've never been a Jerome Baker guy. I've never seen him be somebody. Ooh, he's a tackle heavy linebacker. Let me go grab him and insert him into my starting roster. So if I had to pick one, it'd be Dotson. But if I'm in a shallow league, am I just fading the Seattle linebackers here, Mace?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd rather be late to the party than early. Maybe they have a few, trip up weeks, whatever. Also, guy in Dynasty, the rookie Trice Knight out of UTEP.
Yeah,
I want to give him a shout because he's just lurking there, man. Like, there's a couple teams. I think the Titans as well. Murky linebacker waters. You have some of these rookies that are just waiting to take the reins the second they start learning this stuff. So if one of these guys don't pick up, I mean, you said that the Seahawks usually use the one linebacker, which is fine. But like you said, he's not anything special. He's not anything phenomenal. I mean, he's really good at, tackling, I guess. But when you're asking for that extra oomph, you want that guy, you're always looking for the next thing. Maybe he gets a shot towards the end of the season, maybe towards like playoffs. Obviously, you don't want to put all your stock in a rookie. So in the short leagues, I'm just fading Seattle. Not because I'm an Irish fan, but I mean, it feels good to fade him, but I'm fading.
All right, let's go up front to the big guys up front here. Boye Mafe finished as the DL22 with an average of 9.1 points per game. Again, they bring over this 3-4 base scheme. And I'm a little concerned because I'm wondering whether or not there's going to be a dip in production just from the fact that, instead of having, a Draymond Jones be more of an interior defensive tackle type, there's a lot of talk about him moving towards the end of the defensive line and actually helping in pass rushing support. When you look at his pressure rate, he had like a 9.8% pressure rate with 5 sacks last year. Does him coming off that edge now kind of hurt Mafe's upside? And the same thing can be said with Uchenna Nwosu, with Leonard Williams coming off the other side. Leonard Williams last year had a 10.7% pressure rate as an interior lineman with 6 sacks. So you put these massive bodies on both ends, and then you have the outside linebackers, everybody crashing in to get to the quarterback. Like, only one of these guys is going to eat per play, right? And so the question is, if you had to pick between a Nwosu or a Mafe, let's start with JT this time. JT, who are you rolling with?
Yeah, again, I just feel like this whole team's muddled. I mean, I could see these guys. I could see it going in so many different directions. If I'm in a more of a sack heavy league, I'm probably going Mafe just from what he did last year with Nwosu missing 11 games. Mafe's the guy I'm going with, but again, I'm probably not overdrafting him. I'm waiting to see if he falls. If he falls and I'm getting really good value, I'm probably taking him. But I'm not gonna he's definitely not sitting in my queue ready to draft. He's a guy I'm keeping an eye on. But I think I agree with Mace. I'd rather sit there and not take these guys unless I had to, and then if they hit, okay, maybe I'll go grab them off the waivers. But I'm not actively chasing most of these guys down because again, with a new defensive system, we're really not sure where these guys are going to be. I mean, Jermonte Jones, is he actually going to be anything this year? He was pretty bad last year. They kind of moved him around a lot. They drafted the rookie Byron Murphy out of Texas. Is Murphy going to be playing more of a DN? He played a 4-3 system in college. So it was he was kind of that D tackle. Is he going to play the DN? Are they going to move him to more of a nose guard in this system? That's where I'm really worried. I just don't know what they're going to do with a lot of these guys. And I would not want to I wouldn't want to spend a lot of draft capital or high draft capital on guys where I just have no idea where they're going to end up playing and how productive they're going to be. I'll take guys that they slip, but that's kind of where I'm at. outside of Witherspoon, I'm just hands off on this defense unless guys just slip deep. If they're getting real deep leagues, hey, I'll throw that guy in there. If he ends up doing nothing, I can drop him and pick somebody else up.
Very nice. All right, well, let's take our talents to Los Angeles. I know this is the most, I guess, is this the rival now for the 49ers? It's the Rams. It's no longer the Seahawks.
If that's what you want to call it. I mean, the Niners go to L.A. and it's making it very tight. I don't know, man. Anyone that Deebo Samuel plays, whether it's the Lions or, the Rams, or it's just anyone that's kind of competing, the Eagles, they're just our rivals now. But I think in the division, you're probably right. It's Rams with McVay and Kyle Shanahan history, probably.
So I was actually Fantasy Frames as a brand, we just turned 7 years old back on the 20th, and I was looking back on the post, like the various posts I made that year and that fall, and there was this predicted ugly Thursday night football game between the Rams and the 49ers in Santa Clara, and it was McVay's first year as the head coach versus Kyle's second year as head coach, and it was like, you had the Todd Gurley Rams with Jared Goff. With Jared Goff, and then you had I don't even remember who it was for Carlos Hyde was the running back, and they had Pierre Garçon, and the quarterback I want to say was Brian Hoyer. And I'm thinking to myself,
the Niners barely lost that game, and Trent Taylor caught that ball on the sidelines. And that's crazy that you say that, because I do remember that game because he caught that. The Niners should have had another chance. But McVay, you laughing, Orange. No, seriously, that's one of those ones that stings, dude, because it was at that point that like Kyle Shanahan was like, okay, maybe Hoyer can run this offense, because he had a decent game to that point, and then it all came down to that. Niners didn't get it, and then, I mean, obviously Hoyer is not that guy, but that was a tough battle, man. Dang.
But I was just laughing because I've seen Brian Hoyer in person too many times when he was on the Colts a couple of teams, and I'm just like, man, Brian Hoyer, this is going to get ugly. And nothing against Brian Hoyer, because he was a great back of his career. He had some good games, but I just laughed as he got later in his career and teams kept trying to go to him, and you're like, all right, Brian Hoyer, here we go. I guess we're gonna try it again. He hasn't won in like the last 16 starts or something that he started, but we'll give it a shot. So that was me. As I was laughing, I was getting Colts flashbacks when he was in there the last couple of years.
But going back to that game, it was probably to this day one of the most exciting Thursday night football games in
out of nowhere
years. Yeah, out of nowhere, exactly. Speaking out of nowhere. Or maybe not so much out of nowhere, Aaron Donald retired, and that's great news for opponents of the Los Angeles Rams. But then the Rams, they
I am not mad. Hey man, I hope he's enjoying retirement. I hope he's got enough money and good to go.
Yes. There you go. That's take the high road there, Mace. Good job. I like that.
That's what it is.
But the Rams in the NFL draft, they did not waste any time. They drafted Braden Fisk. They drafted Jared Verse. They have Kobe Turner on the team there. He had a good he showed promise last year for the Rams. I mean, this is a young defensive line here, but JT, like, what are your thoughts here on this defensive line for fantasy? Are we putting any faith in people, or is this mostly a dynasty situation, not so much a redraft situation this year?
Yeah, for me, it's more of a dynasty. I really like the Verse Fisk picks. Both those guys were really good at Florida State last year. They were a nice combination. Fisk was kind of the guy that if you watch the NFL Combine, he was the winner. He was that guy that like really boosted his stock. He went out there, performed really well, ran a really nice 40, put up a really nice bench press. And people were like, oh, okay. We thought he was good, but he showed he was way more athletic than they thought. So obviously he's no Aaron Donald. We know that. He's no Aaron Donald, but I think he's a really nice piece to add. And I actually think Verse is right up there. I think some people I really think he's the number one pass rusher in this draft. Latu from the Colts was technically the first guy taken, and I think he's really good. I think for me going into the draft, I had him versus and Dallas Turner right together. I mean, I thought they were like literally just depending on what system you ran, who you liked better, because I thought those guys were all elite pass rushers. So I thought it was a great job adding Fisk on the inside. And I always say this in a my fantasy league, if you're in that league where you start a defensive tackle, this is a guy I want to grab. I'm going to grab him either late in my draft or waiver first or second waiver run pickups. I want to grab a guy like Fisk. I think because the fact that he can play that defensive end, but counts as an interior defensive end. So he on my fantasy league, he is defensive tackle. I'm taking him. In sleeper, I'm probably avoiding him just because I can get a whole lot of other guys that play that D line position technically versus a guy I want. I want him in any league, especially Dynasty. I would take a shot at him in redraft at the end. If I'm in a bigger league, I would take a shot in case he hits because I think they're going to rely on him a lot. And I think what helps him is that Byron Young had that nice year last year. So it's not like, oh, Verse comes in and we're automatically all going to pay attention to Verse. So I think he's got a shot to be pretty good. And I tell you what, this Rams defense was better than I thought they would be last year. I honestly thought they'd be one of the worst units in the entire league. And they actually kind of impressed me. And then no Aaron Donald Hurts, but I do like what they're doing here on defense. I think some of these young guys and some of their signings are showing that this team is going to be in the mix. And I think this team has a shot to fight for a playoff spot again.
What's up, Angie? We see you in the YouTube chat. How you doing? Welcome to Shoot the Gap this week. Mace, defensive line, real quick before we get to the linebacking situation here for the Rams. Would you take a gamble? And again, let's talk about like shallow leagues. Would you take a gamble on any of these players for redraft this year, or is it just all dynasty for you?
I think if I'm going to take one on anyone, it's probably going to be Jared Verse, just because the draft capital is going to be out there. They've like George was saying, they've lost Arnold. I think that the way that the offense is structured, it gives the defense a lot more leeway and a lot more breathers, because the Rams could either fly it through the air. They also have Kyron Williams. They could slow it down. When they're in control of a game, they are really in control and they can do what they want. That defense with a lot of the young guys that they have, hitters, rotational guys in and out, I think they had 3 or 4 guys that were top 40 defensive linemen ranked in Fantasy Pros last year for scoring. So, I mean, I think that's a testament to the guy they had in the middle. If there is one guy in redraft, it's going to be Verse, but I want to give a shout out to Tyler Davis, 6th-round pick. In his 2 years at Clemson, he had 7+ sacks. He's really good at run defense, man, and the Rams are going to be looking for guys to plug in the middle. So if you're in a dynasty league, that's true position, check that guy out.
All right, let's go to the linebacking situation here. We got Ernest Jones, who finished at Fantasy Pros as the LB14, averaging a whopping 15.1 points per game. Wowza. And then you got Christian Rosenboom, whose name I love to say and emphasize, Rosenboom. I just wish that the Rams would emphasize Rosenboom with more snaps on the field, because you're not really saying that, are you, Base?
No, not at all. They run the one, and it's Ernest Jones. Dude, he had like 30-something pressures last year, which is like, I want to say 300 times any other season that he's ever had. I don't know if that carries over. They did add, we'll probably talk about it in a second, Cameron Curl over the top. I don't know if they bring him in the box or not. Maybe slide down. I do like Ernest Jones, though. I think he was the top guy I had ranked going into this year for linebackers out of the entire division. If you're in a super deep league, I don't know if as much as I like saying Rosenboom, I like seeing him on the field. He's a good compliment when he's out there, but he's not out there enough for me to leave a really bad eyelash on him.
I roster him in just a couple leagues, and it's leagues where really deep rosters and their linebackers just eaten up. There's just nobody on the waivers. People, just anybody that's playable, you got to grab in case of injury. So I have him in a couple of those leagues, but Rosenboom is boom or bust. He just doesn't get a lot of snaps. And so he either has a good game or he's one of those guys that you could legit play at linebacker and he gives you a 0 or a 1 because he just doesn't see a high snap share. I can't remember on the top of my head. It was something like less than 40% or 42% snap share last year, which, I mean, for a linebacker is pretty horrible. So he's a guy that, unless you're in a super deep league where everybody is piling up any playable linebacker, I'm not owning him anywhere unless I'm in that kind of league.
No, 100% agree with you guys here. You mentioned Cameron Curl. Let's go to the back end here of the defense. I first of all, I want to give a shout out to John Johnson III. I have been talking about John Johnson III for fantasy since 2017, I want to say. And the fact that this guy is still on the roster, still there, not somebody that I'm recommending per se, but just there. Kudos to you, John Johnson III. But let's talk about the Cameron Curl situation, because JT, I know you have thoughts as far as Cameron Curl and the rookie Cameron Kitchens, who the Rams brought in the NFL draft this year. You had been talking about this after the NFL draft, that you may even think that Kitchens is even better than Curl. Is there a chance, though, that he usurps Curl as the box safety here for the Rams, or is it Cameron Curl's position and nobody's really going to take it this year?
I think this could be a really interesting situation. I could see them actually figuring out how to play both these guys. I can see them playing a 3-top safety where they're playing they play both those guys in the box, and then they play Russ Yeast at deep. Because a lot of times, like I said, they play a lot of one linebacker. So I could see both those guys technically coming up as strong safety playing in the box. Because Rosenboom is who he is, I really could see them taking the more talented guys. He's like, don't talk about him like that. Don't talk about him like that.
No. I was going to say, if you're going to say his name, you got to say it correctly. It's Rosenboom.
Boom. You got to emphasize the boom. So I actually think both those guys are going to play. I really do. I think they're going to figure it out. I like Kitchens a lot. He dropped a little in the draft. He went in the third. He was a guy that some people pre-draft were talking about. Maybe he is the 1 or 2 safety off the board. He ended up falling a little bit, but I liked him out of Miami. Then they brought in Curl. I thought he'll start. They brought in Curl. I think they play both those guys. So I think Curl's probably the guy you want in redraft. I am grabbing Kitchens in Dynasty, though, because I do think he's going to be a guy that ends up seeing significant time, as I do actually think I would be shocked if they don't end up playing a ton of 3 safety looks this year.
All right. Let's go to the desert now and talk about the Arizona Cardinals. I feel like this will be a quick little segment here. Although, to be honest with you, it's going to be quick, but there are a few players here that I'm actually kind of excited to talk about. First and foremost, you have the second-year player now, B.J. Ojulari, limited snaps. I'm not going to say he was knocking down the door with tons of snaps, but on limited snaps last year, he had a 12.4% pressure rate, which is pretty good, pretty solid for an edge rusher, and especially a rookie edge rusher. And to be honest with you, if I had to pick him or Zaven Collins, first of all, Zaven Collins needs to go. Just like the name Zaven Collins, like no disrespect, that was kind of disrespectful, but you get what I'm saying. Like for fantasy discussions, like that needs to go out the window because it's just not a thing. So I if I had to pick one, it's Ojulari, and just hoping that translates. Is that kind of the consensus for you there, Mace?
Yeah, I do like Darius Robinson out of Mizzou. I don't know if they're going to put him inside, outside, whatever. I really think that Gannon and that entire crew is really just trying to figure out what they have. I mean, They have a decent secondary, right, with some big names. Their linebackers are, serviceable. But I think they're really trying to figure out that front rotation. There's just not a lot of meat on the bone there. Last year, their leading guy was defensive lineman 57, Justin Jones, defensive tackle. It's not very good. I think Zaven Collins' pass rush rate was like a 0 for the first couple of weeks. They need to find that man in position. I mean, you draft him at 1, then you try to do the Reddick thing. It's not really working. He's got to find new land and try to do something else. I'm out on him as well. As far as anything, though, I mean, if you want to roll a dice on a guy like Ojulari because you definitely just waited or you need a bye week guy, I feel like he's really good and serviceable for that. But aside from that and just my liking for Darius Robinson, I don't really think I'm going to go for anyone, even really in Dynasty aside from Robinson also.
JT, linebacking situation here for the Cardinals. Kazir White just came out of nowhere last year. In 11 games, had a 13.4% tackle rate, 53 solos, 37 assists. You like the hyper efficiency with a sub 10% missed tackle rate. He averaged 13.4 fantasy points per game using Fantasy Pro scoring. Looking at that average, he was in the top 20 of points per game linebackers. I mean, this came out of nowhere. And then he had, I don't remember the injury that he had. Was it an ACL? Was it a arm injury? Not to downplay, but not that it matters. He should be a full go coming into the season. Was he a money play or a mirage? Last year, JT.
Yeah, I think it was a bicep injury for him that I think it was week 11 or something like that he went out. Yeah, you're trying to catch lightning in a bottle, I think, with him. I think he was more productive than I would guess he's going to be coming up. I'm hearing some Mac Wilson hype from some people. I'm not 100% sure I'm on board on that either, but that's what I'm hearing from them. I'm probably avoiding this linebacking crew if I can. I just don't know if I feel great about them at all. I'm with Mason that Darius Robinson, my Mizzou guy, is the guy. And if you're in my fantasy league, he's going to count as a defensive tackle. So he's in there right now because of their 3-4, he counts as D tackle. He was a beast for Missouri when they moved him to end last year. He played inside most of his career. Last year, they moved him to end. And then he just was super disruptive and then just crushed at the Senior Bowl. He had a great Senior Bowl, moved himself way up the rankings. He's the guy I want in Dynasty. And again, D-line, I like him in any kind of D-line league, but I absolutely love him if you got to play him as a defensive tackle. To me, he feels like he could be that Cam Hayward type of guy that's just real disruptive, still can make tackles, but get to the quarterback and put on pressures. So he's my favorite guy in this front group. I feel like this is a group where they're similar to Seattle. We're not 100% sure who's doing what, but I at least feel like the Seattle guys have shown some good stuff over the years, where this team we're really hoping that some of these guys step up at some point. I don't love this front. I don't like the linebackers. I don't like anybody else. Robinson and then Ojulari is the one guy I would take the shot on. Other than that, I probably don't want a piece of much of this front for Arizona.
Let's get to the defensive back position here, because this is an interesting situation. You have Budda Baker. What can you say? This guy's a stud for IDP. Last year, averaged 10.1 points per game. He only played 12 games because of injury. You have Jalen Thompson there, still same thing, 10.5 points per game. Just pick one, you're happy either way. Just set it, kind of those set it, forget it players. But with the injury, I want to say that this is not the first year where Budda has missed multiple games due to injury, or there's been complaints about contract situations. Should I be reading the tea leaves here and thinking, for redraft purposes or for dynasty, I may want to start investing more in Jalen Thompson than Budda Baker, or is that sacrilegious to say, Mace?
I think that's kind of been the move among drafters. I've seen a lot of people, friends of ours, kind of slide in my DMs and be like, yo, I got Thompson in the 19th round of IDP draft. And they feel like they're coming up on gold, which is dope because last year he finished as the defensive back 30. But with Budda Baker in, you have to account that he can do both. He's like the heart and soul of that defense, right? There's not really a linebacker on the line that's really solidifying them. So if they need a call for the troops, it's probably going to be Budda Baker. He's a shutdown guy. He was only the DB 71 last year, but like you said, he had missed time. So I feel like it's like Jalen Thompson, if you can come up on him, that's really good. But I think Budda Baker, they're going to even out a little bit more. I think they'll more so be around 40, 50, defensive back 30. But I think they're going to weigh down on each other a little bit, if that makes sense.
We got Doug, Oklahoma Doug. First of all, for those who are unaware, Oklahoma Doug was one of the OGs in the fantasy space for IDP Fantasy Football long before I stepped on the scene. So to get the love the show, big fan, that means a lot. Yes, that's right, Doug. IDP for life. And dude, hit me up on Facebook or on Twitter. Let's get you on one of these shows because it's been far too long. I'd love to talk shop with you.
That would be awesome. I tell you what, if I've got room in a deep league or a league that has a lot of taxi spots where I can stash guys, The guy I'm looking at is Dadrion Taylor Demerson. I really liked him coming out of college. He was a guy that, as I started looking at rookie draft tape, he was a dude that started moving up the draft board for me at safety. And when they picked him in the 4th, I thought they want to keep Buddha, but Buddha's pretty much said, if we're going to be terrible, I want to go. Like at some point, I want to be on a winner. So I felt like he was like, okay, if we can't turn it around, this is the guy we're going to get in case we have to move on or trade Buddha. So he's a guy I don't think you're going to get anything out of him this year, so I wouldn't pick him up, but I put him on my radar and keep an eye on him. Like I said, if you can grab him now and stash him, stash him. If not, keep an eye on if something ever happens with Buddha, they trade him, something, he gets hurt. That's the guy I want to look at. Another guy that I think is interesting, not draftable, no one you want to take, but I just want to keep on people's radars is Garrett Williams. So Garrett Williams, 3rd round pick, 2023, ACL injury coming out of Syracuse. Really talented guy. Would have went higher without the injury. They've got him set to be the nickel slot right now. If he stays in that nickel slot, that interests me. I want to see how he plays in that spot because he was more of the shutdown outside corner at Syracuse. If he ends up being there and that becomes a pretty good spot on this defense, he's the guy I want on my watch list. I'm not drafting him. I'm not taking him, but I'm keeping an eye out to see how he hits. Is he a guy that ends up being in the mix, making run tackles, getting you 6-7 tackles a game, plus some pass deflections? If that's the case, then I'm probably scooping him up, especially in cornerback start leagues.
Very nice. All right. We've been waiting for this all show. I know Mace has been waiting for this all show. He's had to hear about some scrub Seahawks and some scrub Rams and what you call the Cardinals at defense for here. But I don't know what's beneath scrub, but whatever. That would be what it is. Let's talk some 49ers, Mace. Let's start with your team. You all got rid of Chase Young. Smart. Thank you for giving us a draft pick. That was fantastic. Thank you for that. Being a Commanders fan.
Can I say something about that first? So
yes.
When I was hearing some of the rumblings from some of my favorite 49er content creators that just follow the team as a team and report, I was reading the tea leaves like the Niners were going to get Montez Sweat. And I don't know. If you know me, that is like one of my favorite, him and Josh Hines Allen are like my 2 favorite dudes. So I'm like out here, woo, let's go, freaking out. And then it's like Chase Young, and I'm just like, dude, like not like I wanted to believe in him, but guys like him and Sebastian Joseph Day joined the team, and they didn't really produce at the level that you would want. I mean, obviously he's not going to be Nick Bosa, but when you start talking about guys who played in college together, kind of grew together, they formed a game off each other, just want a lot more from him. Very happy that he got his 1-year deal for $13 million. He had successful neck surgery. I digress.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think we all saw the clip versus Detroit where Jahmyr Gibbs made some kind of cut and Chase Young didn't even make an effort to make a tackle. But in some plays during the Super Bowl, and again, sorry for bringing this up. I know it's still early. I
will say to mates, I had heavy money on the Niners. I had heavy money on CMC MVP. I was all Niners on the Super Bowl. I was all on CMC on like every bet. So I'm not a Niners fan, but I was pretty crushed as well.
This is your fault. Okay.
It is
okay. Me too, brother. Me too, man.
But Young was actually playing, at least in the first half, like he was a first-round pick opposite Bosa, getting after Mahomes. So I was like, great that you showed up there, but then the second half was, well, we all know how that ended. But the 49ers, they go out in free agency, they bring in Leonard Floyd, formerly of the Bills, formerly of the Rams. He had a pressure rate of 10.5%, but he had 11 sacks, 19 quarterback hits, and that's playing on a Buffalo defense that they just rotate their defensive linemen in and out, in and out, in and out. And now you have some stability here playing opposite Joey Bosa. They're not rotating him out as, he's there. He's a staple. He's one of the best edge rushers in all of football and for fantasy football. What are your thoughts on Leonard Floyd for fantasy this year?
I like him. I think he's going to start a little bit more than a lot of people anticipate. I think he's from a winning dare I say, program, right? Like with the Bills, they can't get over the Chiefs hump either. Neither can the Niners, apparently. So he doesn't get the money he wants there. He comes over to another Super Bowl contender, I think, with a more high-profile offense. Maybe he'll get more time off. Definitely won't be as cold, right? So the Niners also went and got Yatir Gross-Matos, who's actually flaring up in camp. People are loving him. And then you got Hargrave in the middle. So to be, I guess, at best the third option for a defense to have to worry about, I mean, I don't want to sit out here and be like, oh, Floyd's going to get 13 sacks, but is it out of like the realm for him to get 10 plus? No, just because you have to worry about Bosa. Bosa's still going to eat, but I think as a DL3 or in deeper leagues and redraft, definitely a guy you're going to want to get on. Also, another guy I want to shout out is Malik Collins. Niners got him from Houston for like a 7th-round pick. He's doing really, really well, and he's going to be next to Hargrave. We saw last year you get defensive tackle, like aside from a guy like Aaron Donald. I'm not saying that Hargrave is Aaron Donald, but I'm saying you get a high-profile guy, especially with a guy out on the edge now like Bosa, there are going to be other guys to eat. So I think Floyd's going to eat. It'll be spontaneous. Like he'll have a couple 2-sack games, I think, and stuff like that. The Niners also have Drake Jackson, but he's going to be injured until – well, he is injured, I should say. He's not going to be. His knee, the Niners are trying to rush him back. I also feel like this is kind of like his curtain call, his last call. He's a 2nd-round pick. Hasn't really done much. He had a nice bend out of USC, but we knew there were some issues, some developmental stuff. But if you can't get on the field, then, the Niners just might Sullivan Thomas or Javon Kittle on you and not redeem it. So, yeah. Go to Salah. You know what I mean? But no, I like Floyd. I like him. I like him more as a depth player. I like him as a bye week guy. But I really think he's a guy who, on one of your bye weeks, could catch fire, and you'd be insanely happy that you got him.
JT, let me ask you a question. In defensive tackle specific leagues, where does Javon Hargrave rank for you in terms of players you are ranking?
Yeah, I think he's a really solid play. I think he's top 10. Again, whenever you can get a defensive tackle plays inside that can pressure, but you have really nice defensive ends on the outside, they've got to pay attention to those guys, and that puts Hargrave in a one-on-one situation, and he's going to beat a lot of guys in one-on-one. He's an older guy, but he's also kind of like that Cam Hayward. If they're on the field, they're going to be playing their butt off, and they're going to be going hard, and you can count on those guys giving you it all. So Hargrave's a guy that I think is slipping in drafts because he's older, but if I need him in a defensive tackle league, he's a guy I've definitely got on my list and in my queue for defensive tackle.
Let's go to the linebacking position. Man, I love this guy. He helped me come up with one of my greatest IDP team names, Forgot About Dre. All right, and then you see him on the sideline ready to run onto the field during the Super Bowl. And immediately tears his Achilles. I think he tore. Just heartbreaking. Dre Greenlaw, when healthy, he's one of the better fantasy linebackers in all of fantasy football. You have Fred Warner there now, currently healthy. You have Devondre Campbell they bring in from Green Bay, who I kind of saw a little bit of a decline last year in his performance at linebacker. Although he didn't play, a whole season per se. What are we doing here? Is Greenlaw? I don't want to ask you, Mace, because I may know what the answer is because blind fandom. But try to separate the fandom from reality. In a shallow league, are you keeping him?
No, in redraft, I'm not. Unfortunately, he's going to be like a week 5, week 8-ish return if I had to guess. I'd rather go. I mean, Thunder Campbell did miss 5 games last year, but I think he had 3 games over 10 points, fantasy pro scoring. He's still a liable guy. And next to Fred Warner, he doesn't have to be the save-all like he was in Green Bay. He was all pro 2 years ago. So, I mean, he's not as athletic as he was, but he's still got the smarts, if not more so now. And now he can be a Bravo element instead of trying to coach up and teach people around him. I mean, obviously, the Niners have guys like D. Winters, Ezekiel Turner, Flanagan Fowles, guys that they want to try to bring up into. But at the same time, as soon as Greenlaw comes back and he's good to go, you're going to have all these guys in the field in a rotation. And it's going to be something filthy. I still think Warner's at the top. I like if Campbell is just completely forgot about, take him, but take him with the expectation of only 5 to 8 weeks. Otherwise, he'll be in rotation and he'll be more of that depth. If Greenlaw has, got some tightness or something down the stretch, they'll put him in. They'll just kind of 1-2 him. He'll get his ring, hopefully, right, and then right off into the sunset. That's the idea. So,
there you go.
that's kind of where I'm with that. As much as it pains me to say that, because Big Play Dre, man, he's got a jersey in the Pro Football Hall of Fame right now just for that tackle that he had on the freaking goal line. Like, insane play. He's an insane player. Him and Fred Warner together, I think, not just my fandom, Green and Niners fan, but they're the best duo of linebackers in the league when they're both completely healthy. And the Niners, like you said, that first half, Chase Young, a lot of those guys were electrified. The second Dre Greenlaw went down, he was being a monster in that game, dude. And it wasn't even on the field. Like, he was literally going onto the field. Like, I was looking away from the TV and I looked back, and for a split second, I thought that someone had mistakenly put him on special teams. I was like, Steve Wilkes, what are you doing? But it was just a freak accident. So when he's on the field, he's great. But for fantasy this year, I'm not.
What about you, JT? What are your thoughts on the linebacking situation?
So, obviously Warner's a stud. Everybody wants Warner. You're going to take him. Greenlaw, redraft, I'm out. I'm just not going to. Guys coming back from injury, I just don't want to take a chance. He is a steal if you're in a startup right now. I've been seeing him in a couple IDP startups I've done. He just drops way down because people know it's an Achilles. Everybody's scared of Achilles. He's a steal right now. So you got to take him with the idea that you're not getting any production, but you're hoping he comes back in the next couple of years, still gives you good production. So I like him as a steal in a startup. Campbell, he's cheap right now. He's just cheap. People kind of forgot about him. Not everybody's like 100% aware of what's happening with the Greenlaw situation, so they're not quite sure where he fits. So I think he's a nice fill-in. If you can get him cheap, like, hey, okay, he's like my 4th or 5th linebacker. I can throw him in a couple weeks if I need to, bye weeks early on. That's where I'm at on him because I think he's going to give you production. He's not the stud he was a couple years ago, but again, you're going to look good playing next to Fred Warner. I mean, you're just going to look good. He's going to make you look good. So I like him. I think he's a cheap, nice option right now.
We got a comment here from Brandon in the YouTube chat. Brandon, I don't ever recall you seeing your name in the YouTube chat. So if this is your first time visiting Fantasy and Frames, welcome. He has a question here. Who wins the Hall of Fame game tomorrow? I think it's Houston. And the reason why I think it's Houston, well, I just think their roster from head to toe is a little bit better than Chicago's in terms of depth. I want to see who's going to be the starting defensive tackle for the Houston Texans, who's going to get the more snaps because of Danico Autry's suspension yesterday. I want to see who's that person, next person up. JT, who do you got winning, Bears or Texans tomorrow?
So here's what I always tell people: when I've done this, and it's a sad I'm admitting, I've bet on preseason football before when I'm just like so like dying for football. I'm like I'm always looking at backup QBs. That's who I want to look at. That's the guy I'm grabbing. I want to see who's the other team playing, who's going. My old boy Chase Daniel, Mizzou guy. Whenever he was playing an early preseason game for the Saints, I would always take the Saints because I'm like, he's gonna sling it when Drew Brees is sitting out, and he would crush. So this one's a toughie. I don't know how much he's gonna play, but I think if the Bears play a lot of Tyson Bagent, I think the Bears are gonna win it. I think Tyson Bagent's gonna play. He's got skill. He showed it last year. He's a guy fighting for a spot. He wants to be Caleb Williams' number 2. I'm taking the Bears because of that reason.
Nice, you too.
Yeah, that dude, you took the words right out of my mouth. I loved watching him play last year. Just, I don't know, kind of madness, like when you saw Joshua Dobbs kind of play. Nothing really made sense, but it was kind of a flow in motion, and it was nice to watch. Honestly, I just want to say that I think it's really weird that the Bears invested so much in a guy, Caleb Williams, and they're not even going to start him in a Hall of Fame layup game. They're not even going to put him out there to get looks and do handoffs like Roshan Johnson or something. Like, I don't know. I feel like they're really messing this all up for him because they get an extra game, they get extra warm-ups. I mean, obviously the guys will take it serious, but it's going to be like an extension of like the UFL game. But a lot of running, a lot of hard hitting, hopefully a lot of field goals. I'm like you, Orange, dude. I already got a DraftKings lineup set up. I got
look at this guy. See, he's ahead of me already. He's already ahead of me.
Defenses, Hey, fellow degenerate here. Hey, I'm waiting for the day that DraftKings finally does some IDP stuff, bro. Because that's when I'm really going to give them money, right?
There's
That would
sportsbook.
be
There's
awesome.
sportsbook to do tackle props and stuff like that.
Yes,
So,
so they actually, I will say, IDP tackle props and defensive props were much better last year, and I'm hoping they roll out more this year. So I'm a big fan of that. Here's my thing. I'm going to give my little spiel on the preseason. I'm glad we've gone down to 3 games because they've already told you that at least 2 games they don't give a crap about at all.
Yeah.
So you go to the first game, they're not playing anybody. The last game, they're not playing anybody. They're basically playing the guys that are going to get cut and hoping who they're like seeing who's going to be the 5th guy. And then the second game, they're playing like 2 or 3 series. Used to play like at least almost the whole game or at least the whole first half. Yeah. It's gotten ridiculous where they're not playing anybody anymore. So the less preseason games, the better, only for that reason. In that I agree with you. If I'm the NFL, I'm damn near twisting their arm and being like, you got to play CJ Stroud. You got to play Caleb Williams 2 series. 1 or 2 series just to get them out there. First kickoff of the league. You got the number 1 pick in the draft against last year's number 2 pick in the draft. Just for the face of it, have the guys with their helmets on, have their guys running there. Damn near, even if you haven't come in and you have them hand off 3 times in a row, have them in the freaking game. Don't have them on the sideline, not even dressed. That drives me crazy. So that's my little that's my spiel on driving me crazy. I went to the Hall of Fame game in high school. Our high school senior trip for our football team was go to the Hall of Fame and go to the Hall of Fame game. And they actually played some players back then. It was awesome. We got now, I mean, we're going to be lucky to see almost anybody that makes the roster probably, I'm guessing, tomorrow. Or, sorry, this weekend when the game is.
My favorite Hall of Fame game moment was when John Madden was calling the game where Colt Brennan, may he rest in peace, was slinging it for the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, dude. I love
it. But anyway, Brandon, thank you very much for the question. Hope you enjoyed what you heard and what you've been hearing. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button and notification bell so that way you're notified when Fantasy and Frames puts out our fantastic fantasy football content for you now as well as all season long. All right, let's finish on the back end here, Mace. Talanoa Hufanga. Another one of those players I have on a lot of dynasty teams that I thank God for IR spots, right? But for redraft purposes, what are we doing here? Are we again, defensive back is just defensive back? We can find replacements easily, or are we holding on to him? What are our thoughts here?
So for redraft, I think I would wait because Hufanga is maybe not like a household name, but if you're playing IDP, you know about him. You know about his breakout last year. You also know he's in a contract here, so if he does get on the field, he's probably going to ball out. My biggest concern is that in Dynasty, the Niners may not pay him, so he might go on. So maybe they try to feature Jair Brown a little bit more. I mean, obviously, I think they're going to run Hufanga until the wheels fall off. But there's also a guy, 4th-round pick, I think out of Wake Forest, Malik Mustafa, who's been coming in, and that guy looks like he was made in a freaking lab, dude. He's a guy like Brown who can play high or low, and I think that's what the Niners are more going towards. Hufanga's a guy that can succeed deep, but he's not a guy that you're going to put deep and be like, all right, we're good. You know what I mean? Like a guy like a Yeast or Quentin Lake or someone who you can kind of trust doing stuff like that. He's not really that guy. He's going to need assistance at some point. He's more of a bang-in-the-box kind of guy. So I think Mustafa's going to get a lot of looks this year. I think that's going to be the name of the game, though, with the Niners defense. Aside from your Bosa or your Warner, like your Hargrave, you're going to have a lot of guys coming in and out, getting rotational, not really sure about their snaps from week to week, and it's going to be different based on matchup. So if I had to think about taking Hufanga, I'd rather wait and then take Jair Brown as like my DB3 bench kind of
guy. All right. JT, anything you want to add to the defensive back discussion here before we close out the show?
I agree with him there. I'm on that. I like Brown as a late flyer. I think if you can get him as kind of a backup guy and kind of see if he hits, because I think another year and him coming in like last year, you knew he was going to work in there. But I think the idea that he's coming in with the expectation of starting, I like to see what he could do. So if I get him a late round flyer or keep an eye on him on the waivers, he's a guy I want to maybe pick up. And if you get in there and he's like, you look at it and you're like, man, he's playing a lot of deep safety. He's like not making many tackles. Then you can kind of move on. But I do like his talent. So he's a guy I'm keeping an eye on.
All right, folks. Well, that's going to round out our coverage of IDP Fantasy Football Talk for the NFC West. Mace Riney, thank you very much for joining us. It's like we've been trying to nail this scheduling down, and it feels great to finally have you on. It's going to be great seeing you in person next week at the Fantasy Football Expo. As we do here on all of our shows here at Fantasy and Frames, we go around the frames and let everybody have an opportunity to tell the people what they're working on, where they can find you, so on and so forth. So please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, most of my stuff is over at RPO Football. I do have a 49ers show that I do, 49ers Uncovered, and that's through the Andropolis Network, so make sure you check that out if you're looking for Niners stuff. Also on Fantasy Pros for rankings. Just want to thank you guys at Fantasy and Friends. You guys are like families. Orange, Jorge, Nate, the whole crew, man. Love you guys. Seriously, it's always a good time. I hope we can link up more during the season and talk football, because that's what it's all about. Not gatekeeping, trying to get the people out there, get the knowledge, and put IDP on a bigger scale than it is now. So
100%. And we love all the work you do at RPO and all the people you got over there. Just quality individuals who love talking defense. JT, what do you got for us, man? What are you up to?
Yeah, you can always find me on Shoot the Gap with you, Jorge, my favorite show of the week. You can always see me on the Commissioner Evaluation podcast with John McGlynn, also here on Fantasy and Frames. I've not been doing a lot of Stu with JT Brew shows here on Fantasy and Frames, but those are coming up. Gambling shows are getting ramped up. I'm looking at all the lines, so those are going to be coming at you hot and heavy here over the next month of the season. And then if you're into IDP, which I hope you are because you're watching the show, if you're a member of DLF, you can look at my rankings over there, my top 150. I've got my rookie draft rankings in case you are one of those leagues that draft late for your dynasty league. I've got those rankings up there. I've been tweaking those the last week or so as I kind of get in there, look a little bit more, get a little more information from camp. I'm tweaking those. So go ahead and check those out as well.
And you can find me at Jorge B. Edwards, but I'd rather you all follow everybody in the Fantasy and Frames family at Fantasy and Frames across all your socials, as well as on YouTube. I really appreciate the YouTube love there, folks, there, helping us get over 1,000 subscribers, and just want to keep pumping out content for you all. But don't forget to head over to fantasyandframes.com, read our IDP articles. I'm working on a couple IDP dynasty targets as well as redraft targets for this year. Our rankings for IDP will be updated before the weekend. Gary Davenport, the godfather of IDP, put out an article recently where he's basically telling you, okay, your IDP draft is going sideways. What do? Don't hit that panic button. Listen to Gary.
that's
read his
cool.
advice. So head over to fantasyandframes.com and read that today. So for Mace, I'm Jorge. For JT, thank you very much. And folks, there is a surprise coming to everybody here at Fantasy and Frames and to you all out there. And I'm just going to summarize it in one word: hockey. See you next week.